Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Columbus This Week with Trevor and Eric, bringing you all the greatest, best news from Columbus. So, it was a short intro. So, Trevor, the Olympics, they're finally over.
Whoa.
Did you watch any of it?
I watched exactly one sport, which was women's snowboarding, I think.
Oh, I thought you were going to say curling, but yeah, I don't know.
That's all you got.
No, it was pretty cool. There's, so snowboarders are lame, as it turns out. I watched like a lot of the Olympics just because I just have it on background on like the TV, and so they had like for most of the events that they have like the tricks and stuff, or whatever. So they have a snowboard version and a ski version. Ski version is always way better, way more excitement, and way more dangerous because like when they're doing like the half pipe, you know what that is, right?
Yeah.
So when they're doing that, like the snowboarder kind of goes up, and then they just kind of like, do like a little trick, and then their star trick's like a 1080 or something. Skiers go up, they go up like 20 feet in the air. So like they go down one side of the half pipe and then they come up on the other side and they go like 20 feet in the air and they're doing like 1260s and stuff. Yeah, snowboarders are lame.
So let's be real here though. Both are less cool than skateboarding.
Definitely not. Skateboarding's so lame. That's so like 90s and 80s.
Like snowboarding is also snowboarding is like the definition of like an 80s thing. And
skiing I think
too.
So I think snowboarding's lame too. No, skiing's great. Skiing's great because it's it's technical and it's awesome.
Like all the skiing and snowboarding movies that came out, like all of them are from the 80s for some reason.
I don't think I've ever really seen a skiing movie.
It's like all the college fraternity movies also from the 80s for some reason.
Oh, well, that's probably because people had nothing better to do, I guess.
Then watch movies.
Yeah.
And apparently actually go outside and ski and join fraternities.
Yeah, kids these days, they don't go outside anymore. But so you asked earlier, like what country won the Olympics, if you will. So I got the list right here. So this is just raw medal trackers, it's not sorted by like number of golds or something like. Actually, I think no, it's just total. So Norway came in first at 39 total medals, and it's like 14 gold, 14 silver, 11 bronze. Germany's number 2. Then that 31, Canada's number 3 at 29, which the U.S. women's team beat the Canadian women's team.
Wow, we got blown the fuck out this year.
No, we got 23.
Well, normally we're like top 3, though. Usually like second to Canada. Canada also performed poorly this year.
Yeah. Norway did really well. And then Netherlands, and then Korea, and then some Olympic athletes from Russia. Not Russia, though, but just the athletes from Russia. Because they got banned for the Winter Olympics, so they get like a little Olympic symbol and it just says Olympic athletes from Russia.
I see.
It's like, they're basically Russian, so
yeah,
what's with the false pretense? So Korea did. I don't know. I guess I don't know the historic trends, but they came in 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, considering they were in Korea. So I assume that's good, but.
I know they tend to do pretty well in the Summer Olympics just because there are a lot of events that really favor them.
Like ping pong?
I was thinking fencing.
Or, yeah, stuff like that, too. What else? There's, what are some other events? Did you watch any, like, you only watched the one thing, but the, like, speed skating is pretty cool, too. Like, when they're doing, like, the short track, so they're just, like, basically, like, skiing, but at, like, they're laying down at, like, a 45-degree angle and, like, going in circles.
You know what I'm actually kind of sad I missed? The bobsledding.
Bobsledding was okay. It wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be.
Did you make it enter a team again this year?
Huh?
Did you make it enter a team again this year?
No, I don't think so.
Because like last Winter Olympics, they had to be funded by Dogecoin.
That's funny. They have like the 4-man bobsled and the 2-man, but the real interesting like bobsled type event. So they do it on the same track. It's called the skeleton. Do you know what that is?
Yeah,
that's the cool one because.
That's the one that's
just
suicidal.
One person. Yeah, exactly. That's the one that's like actually. So that's another thing though. The Winter Olympics, I think they're better than the Summer Olympics. I like watching some of the summer. Like I like watching like swimming and stuff. But yeah, I like watching the skiing events because I can appreciate I can begin to appreciate how difficult they are. But the Summer Olympics are more relatable. But it's like. Okay, they're doing track. Like, yeah, everybody can run. Like almost every human can run. So I guess you can relate to that better.
Well, yeah, you can appreciate. Most people can appreciate how fast these individuals are moving, which is
it's so safe. Like you're just running around a track versus like you're ice skating around a track. Like
so is NASCAR like your favorite sport?
no, NASCAR is really lame.
There's a lot of accidents. There's a lot of potential for death.
Well, yeah, but it's still lame.
I'm just saying if that's what you're going for.
Well, no, that's not the only thing I'm going for. I'm just saying between the two, it's like the Winter Olympics are just
They should make that an Olympic
part of
sport.
NASCAR.
Yeah.
That would suck. Okay. Well, let's move on to the construction roundup.
Sure.
All right. So, as my first, the first thing I've got actually is a statistic. This is coming from the city of Columbus. Vacant structures in the city are down 61% since 2012, and 1,500 of the properties that couldn't be salvaged were demolished. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's also not surprising for anybody who lives in Columbus. They're tearing down a ton of vacant stuff down, and also since 2012 we've had like major rebuilding. Like compare the Short North 2012 to Short North now. Yeah, there's not a vacant building in that entire area.
Yeah. So there's that, and then the next two are coming from Columbus. Originally reported from Columbus Underground. There's a new development. Well, there's a new development on Long Street, and they're expecting to actually grow that to 8 stories of mixed-use apartment development with ground floor retail, structured parking, like in the middle, like they normally do now. But the good thing is it's going to replace a surface parking lot because those are completely useless. And then the next thing I have is there's a proposal for a new 15-story building downtown, and I think this one is nearby, like 16-bit. You know where 16-bit is, right? Yeah. So I think this one is over there, and it's like a 15-story tower, 2 stories of retail ground floor, and then 5 levels of structured parking with 232 spaces.
There's not really much in that area, like in the immediate area.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So this would be helpful.
Actually, there's like 3 pawn shops.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned with these kind of developments though, because they're not really ideal.
Why?
Well, so like look at the Short North, right? Like are there 15-story, residential buildings with a big parking garage like smack in the middle, and then like 2 stories of like 2 floors of like retail like inside? No, it's like a shop on the street, right?
I mean, the difference, though, is that we're talking about a high-density downtown area.
You don't want that high density. Like, so if you look at, like let's say, like, Goodale, like that park, and then the surrounding area right there, and, like, if you include the Short North and stop before you get downtown, like, that's what you want. So you want businesses mixed in with, like, residential housing. You don't want to just put towers everywhere.
Well, I mean, that's just how downtowns end up going in any city. Like the downtowns are always going to be high density, large.
Yeah, buildings. I know. It's just, I mean, it is certainly preferable to like the suburbs, but
I mean, even in DC, like 8-story buildings aren't uncommon.
Well, as long as they have to be shorter than the Washington Monument, though.
How tall is the Washington? I mean, I'm sure the Washington Monument's taller than that.
I don't know. Probably taller, but.
I didn't realize that was a thing though. You had to be shorter than the Washington Monument.
Yeah, that's why, because otherwise DC would be filled with skyscrapers. But
well, yeah, I know it's a mid-rise, but I didn't realize that was like that was the breaking point.
I'm like 95% sure that everything has to be shorter than that, but there's like 5% in there where it might be like just mandated by the city. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure that's the case. So, but yeah, so that's. I mean, I'm glad that these, I prefer this versus like abandoning downtown. Like, I think that's a really bad thing. I would just prefer more areas like the Short North and German Village versus.
Well, have you ever been anywhere that has a downtown that's like the Short North?
Well, not entirely the downtown, probably not. But
yeah, I mean,
I know it's like gonna happen. It'd be nice if I could just have my ideal world.
Where like cities don't do city things?
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so let's move on. First up, you had something.
Yeah, so there was a flight. I found out there was a flight sim company. So, company that makes computer flight simulators or whatever for our audience here. So they embedded malware to their own like software to steal your username and passwords from like your web browser.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
Well,
they did that to people who. So what they did was, if you got like a pirated copy or a pirated like serial number that apparently they flooded Pirate Bay with, then they would like steal your username and password for like your banking website, like, you know, all that kind of stuff, like, you know, logging into like forums or whatever.
So. Yeah. So this isn't an uncommon thing. The not the stealing people's stuff thing, but the developers of software releasing their own software on like the Pirate Bay.
Yeah.
And so they might not know this, but it's generally a really bad idea to mess with people by like giving them a purposely broken version.
Yeah.
Because it tends to get you this like core group of hackers that just like sit on your software
and they just get really mad.
Well, they just sit on your software and they provide they'll just, you know, pro bono provide clean, easy to use broken versions of your software that you can't do anything about. Yeah. Because they're willing to dedicate their time to screw you over because you're trying to, you know, make other people's lives harder.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen it happen to EA because I know this is a long time ago, but EA put out a game called Mirror's Edge, and that's literally what they did. There was this thing, so like it was.
I didn't hear about it.
Yeah, so like 4 or 5 levels in, like they make your move speed go down to like 0, and you just like can't jump over this tiny gap. So it's like it's a funny thing, but yeah, it's not generally taken very well.
Yeah.
So I mean, they can look forward to having people just sitting on their software cracking it for years to come.
That's funny. Yeah, I mean that's what they get. I mean, like just release your software and then, you know, don't try to fight like the pirates and the hackers because you don't have the time or the energy or the effort or the motivation.
Yeah, and they're doing it for free.
Yeah,
you can't be people who are doing it for free. All right. Next up, I found a funny little, I guess you'd call it like piece of flair or like a patch, on what do you call it?
PBS?
No, Etsy.
Oh, okay. So what is this?
Okay, so let me explain for our viewers.
Okay. Well, it's out of stock apparently.
Yeah, I guess they just sold too many. It's literally a Star of David with gun owner written in the middle.
That's so cheap. Oh my god, it's like I'm cringing looking at it.
I mean, it
got 154 Facebook likes though. So
Jesus, it's designed to look exactly like the stars that the political prisoners and the Jews in Nazi Germany were branded with. So here's the overview given for this stupid piece of flair. We do not invoke this historical symbol lightly. The similarities between the current attitude of the legislative environment and the systemic persecution that the star represents are uncanny. There is no difference. The pieces of flair patch is a strong reminder of how quickly an unarmed society can be destroyed.
Oh, man.
So, no matter how you feel on gun rights, this is really stupid.
Yeah, that's so dumb.
Gun owners are basically the Jews in Nazi Germany.
Yeah. See, that's the problem is like, well, I mean, we'll talk about this later, but the gun owners have to stop. They have to stop with the stupidity with stuff like that, but they won't because, you know, there's just a lot of stupid people out there and some stupid people own guns, so.
And last up in 2 minutes hate, this is in related gun news. Donald Trump has said on Twitter he'll be pushing strongly for comprehensive background checks with an emphasis on mental health. He wants to raise the age of ownership to 21 federally and end the sale of bump stocks.
Why is this in 2 minutes of hate?
He hopes Congress. Okay, so like, the Trump fans and the Donald have lost their mind, and we have choice quotes from them such as. I hope this is some type of 4-dimensional chess going on. I mean, so basically, I think all of his fans are just like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, well, what they should be doing is mostly supporting this.
Really? All of it, you think?
The raising the age to 21, I'm a little iffy on. I mean, you have to be 21 to buy a handgun, you know, so it's not that big of a deal. But definitely, you do need better background checks. And there's no point in the bump stock.
So what's wrong with the FBI background checks?
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert on it, but it appears that the background checks aren't. Well, sometimes they're either not done or they're just not as thorough as they need to be.
Well, I mean, we had a guy.
They don't catch like if you're suicidal or something, like you could just walk in and buy a gun.
So you think you need a psych exam before?
I'm not saying you need a psych exam before, but
then how would you catch that?
well, you could just look up like, oh, so and so is like been admitted for some psychiatric condition or something.
Almost nobody who's suicidal gets admitted. And also,
well, that's just suicidal though.
I think if you get admitted, no, actually, I'm sure of this. If you get admitted for a lot of mental stuff, you fail background checks. Like that's part of the FBI background check.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else needs to be done for the background checks, but just the sentence itself, I don't really have a problem with that.
I'm almost positive if you're unwillingly admitted to any institution, you automatically fail those federal background checks.
Yeah, but I mean, people still buy guns, so.
Well, what I'm saying is like, the test already does what I think most people want it to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the whole bump stock thing, like, there's no like we don't. I mean, that's kind of like whatever. Just throw them a bone.
But the rationalization for the from like the Donald on Reddit was crazy.
What was it?
I mean, everybody was just like trying to be like, all right, how can we explain this in a way that doesn't make us look like Trump is bad.
Yeah, I've actually never been to the subreddit before. I'm looking at it now. It's pretty obnoxious.
Yeah, it's not great. So, anyways, that's it for the 2 minutes. Hey, ready to move on?
Yeah.
Okay, so first up in Columbus news, Eric, we have a rare, completely positive story.
What?
Coming out of a...
Well, are you feeling under the weather?
Coming out of a somewhat negative one. I mean, to be fair. But, so there is a retired canine dog for the Westerville Police Department that is being given to the daughters of Eric Joe Ring, who was one of the two officers who was shot and killed.
That's good of them.
Also, apparently, they've been both of the daughters, or all of the daughters, have been offered free scholarships to Otterbein.
Yeah, because it's in Westerville, makes sense.
So I think it's less impressive, just because I don't know if you know this, but it's like a state statute that if you're like the family member of an officer killed in the line of duty, you get free tuition at any state school. So, like, Otterbein is now competing against like OSU. So it's a lot less impressive, but it's definitely a good gesture to offer.
Yeah, I mean, because Otterbein, in case people don't know, is a private school.
Yeah, so it doesn't fall under that statute.
Yeah, makes sense.
Right.
That's that's good. I'm glad. I mean, that was it was a few years ago. They were like, I guess I've seen it from time to time. But there are stories of like, an officer retires or the dog's going to retire and like they were the handler and they want to keep the dog, and then there's always just like every once in a while there's some bureaucratic like mess that gets in the way, and there's like
they end up paying like thousands of dollars and stuff.
Yeah, there's something stupid, but it's good that they're they're just giving it to them instead of like making it like stupid more or less.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair though, if even if they wanted to, it would look so bad on the state, on the city, on the police department that there's no way they'd get that expedited.
Yeah,
it's amazing how quickly bad publicity can cause things to move through.
Yeah, that's what Twitter's for, right?
No, I guess we'll see later on.
Yeah. Oh wait. Oh yeah, we will. Oh, that's funny. I forgot about that. Okay.
Next story.
Yeah. So if you've been following, I'm sure you haven't, but if you've been following comments from some of the gubernatorial candidates, one of them that came out that struck me was Dennis Kucinich, who was in Congress, I think, for like 20 years. He said, he vows to end all oil and gas drilling in Ohio if elected governor, and then take the industry to court. And so he's basically planning, if he gets elected, and I just don't see how this is even possible, but he's planning on utilizing eminent domain to seize control of all oil and gas wells throughout the state and then destroy them. And then he will block all new drilling permits and a total ban on injection wells. In addition to that, he proposes measures such as spending more money on basic infrastructure and constructing a statewide public broadband network. So it's like you had really good stuff on one hand and then really bad stuff on the other.
So I just want to point out he's thrown the election.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know if you know this, but most of southeastern Ohio is generally pretty purple.
Yeah,
this'll, like, if he ends up winning the primary, this turns that deep red.
Because because basically what he's saying is like, oh, you work in a fracking field, like, well, I'm going to take your job. Yeah, that's what that means.
Yeah, half those counties are drilling shale oil, and then another 2 or 3 like the Athens Tri-County area is a source for like wastewater.
Yeah.
So like that's just you're just like, all right, I'm going to like not by population, but by what would you call
county,
that? Well, by like land mass, you've just said like a third of the state. You wanna take away like the most profitable. I mean, yeah, so the most profitable one of the most common jobs.
You're right. It's also I also don't think it's a good idea. So our listeners know like I'm pretty pro environment, but the fact of the matter is, you have to get energy from somewhere, and the oil and like the fracking industry has largely disrupted the coal industry. So it's been a net good thing for the environment. I think there's room to improve with respect to ensuring that those chemicals absolutely do not make it into any sort of into like your water, because like people watched like the documentary Gasland. Do you ever see that? Yeah. So people watch that and like people are like lighting their faucets on fire, like the water coming out of their faucets on fire. That's obviously ridiculous, but I think technology's gotten a lot better since then too.
I thought it was later discovered that also wasn't the case. That was an area that where like there were porous wells anyways. So gas, like shale gas, is literally just leaking into people's water.
Yeah. So I mean, aside from that, like the point really is it can be done safely, and natural gas is a pretty cheap, overall not that bad of a resource
compared to coal. You mean?
Yeah, compared to coal and compared to oil. So. At some point, like if you're going to be a leader, you have to make hard choices sometimes. In this case, you have to say, well, until we build, enough wind and solar and hydroelectric power to offset using coal and, natural gas and oil and all this stuff, we have to use something. So why not use what's most clean?
I do.
And the other things, it's also good for us in Ohio because it makes us like an energy exporter, so we're actually like making money, ideally. But
I have to imagine he's doing this for strategic reasons, and he has no intention on winning the governorship.
Yeah,
because this is a very like ideological position. That's okay. So whose votes is he winning by doing this, and whose votes is he losing? I feel like so it does not make sense if your goal is to actually win the governorship of Ohio.
Right.
So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. What do you think of the constructing a statewide public broadband network statement?
I mean, that's what do you mean public broadband network statement?
Like he said,
the statement.
In addition, that was like the second part
building the infrastructure. I think this has been tried before, and it's generally just not very effective. They can't provide a good public service. I mean, so it's better than nothing, and that's fine. But then so are public libraries.
Yeah.
Like I honestly think that the delta there for small towns is very, very little, right? Like it takes 5 minutes for you to get to a library if you're in a small town, and public Wi-Fi isn't going to be that much different.
Yeah.
For big cities where the libraries are a little more spread out, it might be more helpful, but I still think I just haven't seen it. It hasn't been implemented successfully to my knowledge. And
what about? So I wonder, what is it like? There's been some cities that have done or have tried it and have had pretty good success. Because the problem is we've talked about this to death, but overall the problem is like
space.
Yeah. Well, no. I mean, with like the ISP competition. I mean, that's ultimately the real problem. Maybe it makes more sense. I mean, so. Like fiber or broadband, I mean, it's infrastructure, right? So maybe it makes more sense for the government to like own that and then lease it out versus letting companies try to build their own.
Well, I do think in general treating it as a public utility and having the government own the line that's a fine solution.
Yeah,
but I haven't seen public broadband implemented in a way I would consider like good.
Yeah, that's fair. So, so next up, Trevor, believe this or not, but the city of Columbus is going to have not a lot of money. So, right now, Columbus City Schools they have a 5-year financial plan. They're expecting an $80 million deficit in year 4, $224 million shortfall in year 5. So, $224 million shortfall within 5 years.
I mean, So I guess my like I don't really have a strong opinion on this, but I do think that I guess Columbus public schools have this problem where they're overfunded for their quality.
Yeah, that's fair.
And so I think the whole strategy behind improving those schools needs to be revisited because throwing money at the problem really didn't work.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, this happens all the time, but like there's a problem and people are like, oh well, let's just like give it more money, and they don't address address the underlying reasons for whatever they're trying to solve for. Hey, I don't understand why it keeps happening, but I mean you can't just keep throwing money. I mean they should have more money, and I mean they shouldn't like have giant budget shortfalls. I think that's a problem, but you also can't just be like, oh, hey, well, here's $100 million more, and then if they don't have improvements or any outcome, stop. Like you can't just keep giving them money. You're not going to fix the problem. Then you're going to waste money too.
I think CPS, I forget which school district it was. It might be Olentangy, but I think CPS actually spends more per student than Olentangy, despite Olentangy being like a top 20 top 20 like nationwide district, and CPS obviously not being great.
Right.
So I mean I think money just doesn't like it's orthogonal to the actual issue here, and if they feel like they don't have the money to keep funding at the high rate that they are, then I guess it makes sense to rein in the budget a little bit.
Yeah, I mean there are two facts here. One is they don't have enough money, and the other fact, which seems contradictory, is throwing more money at them isn't going to solve the problem.
Well, why do they not have enough money? Is it just because of how?
Well, one reason is the state, like the actual state, is giving, according to this is from 10 TV, but according to 10 TV or their article, the state is giving the school district $100 million less than they anticipate.
Well, why are they anticipating so much? I
think it was like there was like the state budget, and then maybe there's been a change.
I see.
So. The real question is like, why is the city not able to afford, like, why is the state subsidizing public schools in the city? I mean, I guess maybe the state runs the public schools, so I guess there's that, but.
Yeah. I mean, the city could enact levies if they felt that was the real solution to the problem.
Yeah. True.
Okay, Eric, for our last story, we have actually a ton of stories that have come out from all over the state.
So it's like the Russian nesting dolls. There's just stories within stories.
Not stories within stories, just like a hailstorm of stories, more
okay.
like. So essentially all over Ohio and possibly all over the nation, I really have only been keeping up with Ohio news. There have been a ton of gun and bomb threats, including, and this is just, so like I have a friend who I work with who his wife's a teacher, and she had classes canceled with them last week for a bomb threat. My brother, there was a school like near him that got canceled for the shooting threat. This is just happening all over. You can literally find like within 7 days, like two.
So it's just is it just like a bunch of copycat kids who are doing that?
So I wanted to talk about this because I want to sort of spitball why you think this is happening. Because my theory is that essentially you basically give children the power to cancel school whenever they want. And I remember even when I was in middle school, this happened once. There was like one bomb threat, and they closed down school for a day, and then they made a big deal about it. And, made us go to an assembly or whatever.
Yeah.
But if you like give kids the power to like cancel school at will, and imagine you have like 500 kids, like what are the odds that throughout an entire school year none of them is going to do that?
Yeah, that makes sense, especially with, well, I think there's that, and I also think that there's, like, copycat kids, more or less, who may or may not be serious about their threats to shoot up a school or bomb a school or whatever, but they feel, like, empowered to do that.
So. Also, you have to keep in mind, the schools are very, very reactionary.
Oh, God, yeah, they are so bad.
The one... This was after I was out of school, but there was a bomb threat a couple of years ago where I lived, and the threat was literally somebody had written "boom" on the inside of one of the bathroom stalls. School closed for a day.
Yeah.
Like when you're
it's just like the day that you find it is like the day that the school's closed. Like what if they had written it like 2 weeks ago?
I think some student reported or something, and that's why it happened. But
yeah,
if you think about it, like, you're just giving an enormous amount of power to these kids. Like, they don't even have to like give a threat. They could literally just write like a vague, like, the word boom, and suddenly it's like airport security. Now, the school's closed for a day.
Yeah, that's not good.
I think that's why you saw like a dozen of these in like a 5-6 day period in Ohio.
Yeah.
Because
what about nationwide? So I did hear there was dude, I don't know if you saw this, but there was a former NFL player.
Yeah.
He posted on I don't know if it's Facebook or Twitter or
some social media.
Yeah, something like that, and it was like a picture of a shotgun. I'm probably going to misremember some details. I don't really follow it that much, but it was like a picture of a shotgun, and then it was something about bullying, and so I'm paraphrasing here, but the long and short was it was like basically there are two things you can do against bullies, and one of them is suicide, and the other one is kill them. And it was like a picture of a shotgun, and it was like hashtag that this high school that he went to. And he's like a former NFL player at this point, right?
Oh yeah, I heard about this.
Like, what is this guy thinking? Apparently, he's been committed to like a mental institution since then. But geez,
I mean, that's like, I feel like if you say something like that, that's your only option, regardless, because otherwise the PR is going to kill you.
Yeah,
be like, oh yeah, I just had a mental breakdown. Regardless of whether you did or not, you need to have had one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just this is not a good trend. But I figured this would happen more years ago, like when I was in school and realized that kids could get away with this. I was like, I bet this is going to happen all the time. And now you can make calls that can't be traced. You can use like a Google phone number.
Yeah.
And make a phone call, and it's like, what are they going to do about it?
Yeah, I mean, if they can't catch you, then
like I think
they can't catch you.
I think half these kids do get caught, but I think it's literally just because they're dumb.
Yeah.
Because the school system isn't really technologically advanced. The police departments aren't either. Like,
the local police aren't.
Yeah, they don't know what they're doing. So yeah, I mean, like, I guess to really pursue this, you would literally have to get the FBI involved, and then
the FBI doesn't have the resources or the
Not, especially when there's literally 2 of these a day in a state.
Yeah,
like multiply that across 50 states or even 10 states, and the FBI just can't keep up with bomb threats at schools.
Right. But I mean, ultimately, I think one of the problems with it is like, so like this kid, whatever, who shot up the school in Florida, like I'm seeing him all over the news now. Now he's like famous. So like I think whenever somebody does something like that, they should like completely black that person out. Like you should never hear about that person again. All you should hear about is like the victims. Because when you post up like, oh, so and so like killed these kids, so and so was deranged, or so and so here's like a picture of them like looking mean or whatever. Like all that does is inspires copycats. It doesn't make anything. It doesn't do anything else other than that. It's not like it's not a warning. It's not a deterrent. It just further enables people to like feel like they can go do that.
I don't really buy the copycat thing so much. I guess maybe it's just because my school experience was different. But
the other thing is like I think like when you do something that's like that heinous, like society, like the other than like actually punishing that person, the only other thing that you can do is basically try to like wipe them out of existence, of like remembrance. Like if you're going to go shoot up a school, then as a society we're going to pretend that you like never existed, and we're just going to throw you in a hole somewhere. Like, because if you're like putting them in the media, then people want to do interviews and
you said for pretending?
Wait, what?
I thought, did you say for shooting up a school or for pretending? Maybe I misheard you.
No, I mean, if like you're going to shoot up a school or whatever,
okay.
I'm saying as a society, we should just pretend that you never existed.
Gotcha.
Like you shouldn't, like your pictures should never be displayed on any social media, any news. They should never release your name, like anything like that. Like complete shame and like just like you're done, like you never existed.
So you realize that's one of the most unrealistic things you've ever said, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what we should do, but I know the media wants to make money, so
yeah. Well, and it's not just that. People are interested. Like if you push,
right, which is the problem. I think we have to find a way to make sure people are not interested in that person. Like we should have no interest in that person who did this thing, other than like authorities or researchers or psychologists or whatever who want to like study the motivations. Like, yeah, they should maybe know who that is, but the public at large, like they should, like you shouldn't even be able to name any of these people because they shouldn't matter. Like who cares? Like screw them. They're dead to us.
I mean, shows like CSI, Law and Order, etc. exist. People are very interested in this sort of thing.
I know we need to make people not interested in
this is the kind of thing that like creates criminology majors.
Like, no, they can be interested in that, like, crimes have happened. I'm saying they should never be interested in, like, that individual person.
I mean, I think people end up interested in a lot of individual people who do crazy things.
Yeah, but, like, I mean, if you're going to do that, like, maybe you should, like, have to go, you know, like, research who did that, like, through a library or something. Like, you should never be able to Google search. I don't even know the name of the kid who shot up the school. Yeah, so whatever his name is, like, dipshit, idiot, I hope he dies person. Like, you could... Like, you shouldn't be able to Google search them and, like, get all these pictures of them and, like, whatever. I mean, I guess you could because it's a free internet, but you shouldn't be getting links from, like, the New York Times, like his big mugshot, like, on the front page of the New York Times or something.
So do you want this to be government enforced then? Do you want government enforced censorship?
No, I think as a society we need to do it. I think as a social change we need to make happen.
That's never going to happen.
I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it needs to be done. I mean, there's all kinds of things we need to do that aren't going to happen. I acknowledge that.
Well, I'm just saying it's unrealistic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, did you have anything else for Columbus news?
No, that was it for me.
All right, cool. So let's move on to debate and discussion. All right, Eric. First up in debate and discussion, we have news from Snapchat, our favorite social media.
I mean, it's probably the best out of everything besides Twitter, I would think.
Yeah, it's up there. I mean, it's better than Facebook.
I've never used it, but it seems like it's more person-to-person interaction oriented than like mindlessly scrolling like an idiot.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, you can mindlessly scroll through people's like Snap feeds, though.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I don't know. I guess I've never used it. So
I mean, so the thing is, eventually very quickly you'll run out of like friends. Snaps, unless although I guess that's less the case for like high school kids because tons of them use it.
Yeah,
and so in that regard, there's actually a pretty interesting story as far as Snapchat is concerned. They recently lost about $1.2 billion of their valuation.
Yeah,
and the root cause of this was a single tweet.
You want to read it?
The tweet by Kylie Jenner. I mean, essentially, she just.
I got it right here. I can read it. It says, so from Kylie Jenner, who's one of the Kardashians, right? Yeah. Or something. Yeah. Didn't know who she was. This is what she wrote, or she tweeted. She said, so does anyone else not open Snapchat anymore? Or is it just me? ... Ugh, this is so sad.
And so essentially, a ton of people retweeted this and shared it and social media spread, etc. Because that's
apparently she has 25 million followers on Twitter.
Yeah,
Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
Like, why would you follow her? Why would you care what she says? About anything?
Because she's a celebrity.
Yeah, but like, why would you follow any celebrity?
Because this is what normies care about, Eric.
Oh, it's disgusting.
This is
the problem with America.
This is super mainstream culture. This is what it looks like.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so this got retweeted a ton of times, and people were talking about it. There was a trending hashtag as a result of this tweet, and their stock just plummeted.
Yeah. Well, the other from the article we had, they also did. I read about this earlier last week, but they did a complete redesign of the UI, and the people this is funny. People got together. They got 1 million people to sign a petition to get Snapchat to go back to the old design. And it's like they can't just go back to the old design. Like, I don't even know how they would do that. Would they just what's the git command to go back to your last commit? Like, would they just do that?
It's pretty funny that they got 1 million. Like there was a campaign to there was a petition to cancel Brexit that got 500,000. So Snapchat is twice as important.
People care more about that. Well, in a world where some unknown idiot named Kylie Jenner has 25 million followers, and it shouldn't surprise you that 1 million people would sign a petition to have a social media company change their user interface back to the old one, while one of the most consequential political and economic events of the last 5 or 10 years is only 500,000 people were interested. Yeah. Well, welcome to 2018, everybody.
Social media is important, man.
Yeah. I do wish I had 25 million followers on Twitter because I wouldn't have to have a job. right? Because you just get sponsors.
Oh yeah, you just shill for stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't even want that much money, man. Like I'd be happy if they were like, well, we'll give you $100K a year, and like you just have to tweet whatever we say, and like you just have to follow. Like I don't care. Like that's perfectly fine. Like I would just enjoy the rest of my life. I would
just get to work like 6 hours a week.
Yeah.
That would be nice. But so I don't know if you know this, but Snapchat investors have been historically very skittish.
For good reason.
And you're right, for good reason, because they're buying into like a huge unknown proposition. Because
didn't Snapchat finally make money?
Wasn't that Twitter?
Oh yeah, that might have been Twitter. Okay.
So the thing about Snapchat is their demographics is like, you know, the worst demographics as far as like people who are doing advertising and stuff. It's like 13 to 18-year-olds. That's the market.
Well, it's good though because like that's a good target market though, because if you hook them at I'm using air quotes, if you hook them at 15 in 10 years, maybe that's 10 years of them being a customer, right?
Right, but what if they all suddenly start talking about not using the platform anymore?
Exactly. So I'd say it's probably the most important demographic.
Yeah, it's
for long-term strategy, like product strategy.
It's very but yeah, so that's why they're very skittish, and that's why you saw this huge decrease, because the Snapchat investors are scared to death of people deciding that they're moving on to the, quote unquote next big thing.
Yeah.
So I thought that story was pretty interesting. And then the only other debate and discussion story we have...
The only other thing that was worth even discussing...
is, you know Peter Thiel, right?
Yep.
Venture capitalist?
Yep.
Well, he's moving out of Silicon Valley because he has apparently come to the conclusion that it is like a groupthink sort of bubble, that if you don't have the right opinions, you basically don't get to express yourself.
I would agree with that there.
Well, that's not the only reason he's moving, but he had two separate announcements where he gave a press release saying he was moving to LA, and he also
maybe he wants to go hang out with Elon.
Sort of talked about the terrible culture of Silicon Valley. Yeah. My only thing as far as him bringing up, like as he's leaving, bringing up the culture, he's probably wanted to say this for a long time, but I do think it's funny. It's like, you've been here like 12 years.
Yeah.
Did you just now realize that Silicon Valley is just a big circle jerk?
Yeah.
And if you're not, so basically, if you're not like a techno utopian or like, super liberal, like you can't, like you just don't get to have opinions in Silicon Valley.
I don't think even the I think the techno utopians don't. They're out of it too now. That's the thing. Like I think it's shifted from like 10 years ago, if you're a techno utopian or whatever, like that's like Silicon Valley was in San Francisco, like that's where you went. But now it's shifted to like, now it's about like. It's about like the dominance of like the politically correct culture.
Yeah, it's a very progressive culture kind of thing.
Yeah, and I wouldn't call it. I hate when people call it progressive because it espouses the idea of being like progressing towards something. But I would call it maybe like regressivism or something like that, because like they're regressing back to like stupidity. But yeah. So I made. I think he's going to LA because he just wants to hang out with Elon.
Well, I think the real reason is that he's trying to shore up a ton of contracts with, I think, either Japan or China, and he's much better positioned in LA to do that than in the Valley. And
also though, like, let's say like we exclude like having a real reason. Why would you go to LA? Because I don't really see how it's going to be like that much better.
Okay, yeah. So that was one thing.
Like you're going from like one group of idiots to like another group of idiots. Yeah. I mean, I don't mean LA as a whole, but I mean like, so I do want to say when I'm talking about like these people I despise, I don't mean like the common, I don't mean just like regular people living in LA or even rich people living in LA or San Francisco. I mean the people who are dominating like the media culture. That's who I'm talking
Here's the
about.
difference, I think, though. Most people in LA are normal, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd have like a ton of conservatives who disagree with that or whatever, but I think in LA most people are normal. In Silicon Valley, most people are not.
Yeah, but I'd say Silicon Valley itself, most people are normal, but I think as you get farther north, that's people start getting crazy.
Towards SF?
Yeah, I think that's because Oracle's in Silicon Valley. I mean, do you think like the average Oracle employee, who I think is like average age of like 40, is like on like Twitter, like following Kylie Jenner and talking about like whatever, all the dumb stuff they talk about, like, oh, don't mansplain that to me and stuff? No, I don't think so. But
you'd be surprised.
I mean, yeah, it can happen, but I just think on average it doesn't. But
all right, well, I just thought that that was a little interesting slice of life of somebody leaving the valley.
Yeah, I mean, it's good for him. I don't think he's not fit for. I mean, frankly, he's just not fit for that area because
I don't think a lot of us are anymore. Like, do you think?
Yeah,
you could,
I think they do have a problem with groupthink in the media culture. I mean, that's why they're seeing all these articles about Google and what have you. Like, so there's a big problem there.
Do you think you'd be as comfortable being like? I mean, do you think you'd be politically open like you are now if you lived in San Francisco? Yeah, I wouldn't either.
Definitely not at work or anything. Yeah, like, I feel like I can be as open as I want at work within certain like reasonable boundaries. But yeah, like for example, I'm pretty. Like, I'm not anti-immigrant, but I'm anti-immigration, not because of, and this, it's just because I want fewer people in the United States. So, you know, I just want less people here, right? But if you were to say that, like, until San Francisco, then all of a sudden you'd be like a white supremacist or something. It's like, I don't want more white people here either. I don't want more people, period.
So I've actually heard that it's there's a real problem, not just, and I mean, we've brought up the Google thing, but there's a real problem of like conservatives in the Valley expressing that, like, if they're open about being a conservative, people will like use HR they'll weaponize HR to try and get the person removed from their company.
Yeah.
So like that's the punishment for being a conservative. So there's like, yeah, like you just can't risk saying anything politically unless you're like left of most people.
Yeah,
and so it becomes like a race to the left.
Yeah, and at that point, it's not about discussing ideas or anything like that. It's about one group trying to suppress another group, and that's just not healthy.
I mean, there's that. I think it's also you're seeing sort of a kind of a. I mean, I don't know if radicalization is the right word, but
I'd say it is.
But I think they're like trying to force the window of politics there farther and farther left.
Yeah, which is ultimately bad for them because they'll eventually just get ignored.
Yeah, I mean that is the risk. Although they're in California, so at a state level they won't get ignored.
Yeah, but then people will just leave California, and then
people are already leaving California. The problem is more people are arriving.
Yeah, for now, I don't know, like. California, it sucks. So here's an example of why, like, I want fewer people. Like, could you imagine, like, if you could just move to California and like afford it, like you could here in Columbus? I mean, it has like it's probably the best. It's probably like the best, other than the possibility of like landslides and mudslides and earthquakes and fires and all the other natural disasters. It's probably like the best geographic location on the planet, besides like Italy or something like that.
Well, yeah, I'd argue that the Greek islands are probably better, but like I said, aside from the Mediterranean, you're right.
Yeah, the only reason that California is like a little bit better is because there's like you're close to like the actual. I mean, in Italy, I guess you're close to the Alps, but I think it's farther away.
You want to be able to ski.
Yeah,
I see.
Well, but also, I mean, you get the variety, right? Like, you know, yeah. So, but see, that's why, like, I would like to see fewer people. Well, globally, but also in the United States, is because like I'm alive right now. I mean, I'd say this for any country. Like, I think you just need fewer people, but I'm alive like right now, so I want to like be able to afford to live, you know, wherever I want. Well, I can't afford to live in California because there's just too many damn people, so the prices are too high.
Yeah, people really value weather, I guess.
Yeah, which is a funny thing because weather does not have a large effect on your happiness.
Yeah,
because there's a lot of people who, I mean, there's been studies. So the number one, like, biggest detriment to your happiness, and maybe I'll try to find the study, maybe, but is like your commute actually.
Yeah, well, I think that's work happiness. But
yeah, no, I mean it's overall happiness.
I thought for work happiness it's your commute time.
No, I mean that would also make sense, but it's for overall happiness because especially if you're driving, like when you're driving, like. The problem with driving is like you get engaged into like almost like survival mode. It's like reactionary thinking. It's zero-sum game. It's high speed. It's highly stressful, etc. And then when you have to do that for like 45 minutes or like an hour, like if you have that kind of commute, it's just not like it's
bad
just
for you mentally.
Yeah, exactly. And so something like the weather it's just ultimately dominated by your commute because okay, the weather's great, but you're still stuck inside a car for 2 hours. If that's what your commute is, or maybe even an hour a day. And then you get home and like you're exhausted from driving and you just don't want to go do anything. So yeah, it's like, oh, California sounds great. I'm going to move there from, I don't know, Illinois or something. And then you get there and then you don't do anything different that would improve your life with how great the weather is. And then you're just as unhappy. Like you're happy for like the first 3 or 4 months. And then after that, it just has no effect.
Yeah. But it's pretty good for the homeless though, I guess.
Yeah, we talked about that when I said like the urban legend of New York flying all the homeless people out to Hawaii.
Yeah, I read an article in the New York Times recently about like a big contributing factor to California's homelessness, or at least I guess the theory is that the weather is great there.
I mean, it makes sense. Like if you're gonna be homeless, why would you not be homeless there? Like why would you be homeless in like Ohio?
Well, the problem is the cost of living is really, really high there.
But you're homeless. Like who cares?
Well, you have to buy you have to buy some modicum of food.
No, you get it for free.
How?
I mean, you're homeless. Like you go to like the homeless shelter and you just get free food.
I mean,
how do they do it here in Columbus?
A good portion of the time, like you can't get into a homeless shelter, especially if you're like a single male.
Yeah, I don't know. I've never been homeless, and I hopefully never will.
But, all right, that makes one of us, I guess.
You hope to be homeless?
Oh yeah, I've been homeless a couple of times. Yeah. I was homeless for like a week when I was staying on your couch.
Oh, I don't consider that. You had a place to stay.
No, but when I was a kid, we were homeless for a while.
Yeah,
I mean, it happens. Actually, I was homeless in Columbus. So
when? You were
when I was a kid. Yeah. No, you were saying that you don't understand why anyone would be homeless in Ohio.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out like once you're there, it's like, and you're homeless, it's hard to move.
Yeah, I say you just like I would. Never mind. I don't want to get into it because like I don't know what I would even do if I was homeless. Like
I was a kid, so I just like followed my mom.
Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, like in nature, you know, if you're like a cat and you have kittens, the kittens just follow the mom cat, right? And they're homeless.
Yeah, all the cats are homeless.
Yeah, they can't go to like the homeless cat shelter. It would be a bad place for them to go because then they'd get separated.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Well, you ready to move on to our feature topic?
Let's do it. All right, Trevor. So for our feature, like a main feature for this week, students in the wake of the shooting in Florida, students from Upper Arlington staged a walkout from Upper Arlington High School, and they read the names of the victims from the school shooting, and they basically tried to deliver a message like something needs to be done, which I agree, something needs to be done about school shootings, school safety. So the reason I wanted to bring it up is because this week also the president had a forum, I guess, if you will, for like students from, I think it was students or survivors, if you want to say, I don't know, students or survivors from that Florida high school who, I didn't like watch everything that happened. I just like read the highlights, but one of the things he suggested was like arming teachers, like, and then maybe teachers should get a bonus for being armed and some other suggestions like that.
Yeah, we haven't mentioned it, but I think the arming teachers thing has been like the biggest story this week in the news.
Yeah, and it's also one of the dumbest things that I think and all the dumb things that Trump said, it's one of the dumbest.
Well,
anyway, I guess to wrap up, well, not wrap up, I guess, but to like summarize, I am very happy that high school students feel that they are empowered to protest about something that they disagree with, stage a walkout, etc. I think that's a great thing, and it's probably a good. Hopefully, it will encourage civic engagement as they get older. But I do also think that in general, their anger and their idealism and their, I guess, the solution that they would, that they're looking to like have proposed is not a good one, because at the end of the day, what people try to focus on is like what they do is like everybody's like, oh well, we need to use legislation to ban X, Y, and Z, which is like a violent, oppressive way of like getting your way, more or less. And it also never really solves a problem. Well, and not in every case, but just when you have a problem like school shootings or something, getting rid of guns doesn't solve the underlying problem, which is we have a problem in society where people feel like they need to or that they should go do that. That's what it's like. You're trying to treat symptoms of the disease instead of the disease is what I feel like. But I'm glad, and I think there are some other schools, like other students from other schools who are planning on staging like a similar protest, which I think is great. I want students being more actively engaged in these types of things, but. I guess for a larger point here, I think the idea of like, oh, well, we just need to go ban AR-15s is not like that's just not a good solution. It's a solution that treats symptoms and not the disease.
Yeah, I mean, and they're kids also.
Oh yeah, no, I'm not begrudging them anything here. Like, I think that's what I'm saying. I think it's great that they're getting out. I'm just saying for our discussion, I think it's misplaced.
Although I saw a couple of these when I was going to school. I don't know about you. Like the kind of walkout protests. I would always just join them to get out of class.
Yeah, there's probably a bunch of kids who did that. Yeah, I would have too.
Yeah, keep in mind there is that group of individuals, which I guess Eric and I are included in. So, and look at us now. As you
might imagine.
Look at how politically we involved are now.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how they get you. You walk out just to skip class, and soon you're talking about
politics.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on this? I mean, we don't have to like get into a whole debate about like guns, but.
Well, I mean, we talked about, I guess, our thoughts on the kids' opinions last week. I figured we could talk about the sort of arming teachers thing, though, because that's been a big topic. So I guess my thought on it is that teachers should absolutely have the ability to carry in class
if they want. Yeah, sure.
Yes, but it should definitely not be mandatory.
And you definitely shouldn't get a monetary bonus for doing so.
No,
I think that's so beyond ridiculous. I can't believe he even said that. Like, why? Like, what were you thinking? If you're like Trump, like, what are you thinking even saying something that stupid? Of all the stupid things he said, that's pretty stupid.
Yeah, because I mean, you're just going to encourage people who don't want to carry. There's a lot of teachers I think I had who I wouldn't trust to carry.
Yeah, and apparently we shouldn't trust the police officers either because the officer on duty at that school just sat there. He didn't do anything. You knew that, right?
Yeah. I mean, that was... So, like, the question is, are you going to go in and 1v1 a shooter, you think?
I don't know. I can't 100% say how I would react in the situation because I haven't been in it. But what I can say is if you're a police officer... So, I mean, if I'm a soldier in a uniform, then that's different. If I'm a police officer in a uniform... I mean, that's your job. Like, then don't sign up to be a police officer if you're not going to take those risks.
I think the culture has a larger problem of the police culture of currently we have a lot of very, very skittish, scared cops. And I think honestly, I think that is the single biggest problem that the police has right now. There's like this mentality that you have to...
and then they also have to protect themselves versus protect the public.
Yeah, there's this concept that you have to come home at night. That's like the number one priority of the police. Get yourself home at night to your family.
Right.
And so the problem...
And their priority should be protect the public. That's what their priority is. Even if that includes your own death. Because otherwise don't sign up to be a police officer because that's what we expect for police officers.
Yeah, and so the problem, I think this is basically the cause of the majority of unjustified shootings we see, right? Some cop gets scared for their life because they saw some movement or, like adrenaline or something. They get scared and they use that fear to justify pulling the trigger. Yeah. Like, I think that is the single biggest problem the police has right now.
I agree.
I mean, that and I guess the fact that, like, the FOP covers them.
Right. And, well, which obviously, like, the NRA, like, they're incentivized to do that, right?
To do what?
Like, to never give any ground on anything.
Yeah. What does the NRA have to do with that?
I'm just throwing those as an example. Like, well, I mean, you could use any other. You could not any, but you could use a lot of other organizations. But since we were talking about guns, it was just the first one that came to my mind. But
I mean, I think most unions work like this, right? Like you can't, especially in the public, you don't want to like exile your union members, right? And so that's essentially what you're saying with the cops. They just happen to be in the public more for misdoing their jobs than most professions because. People don't care about manufacturer defects as much as they do, dead people. Yeah, as it turns out.
Unless you're like the owner of the company, maybe you care more about the.
Well, I mean, that's your own issue to take up with the union, I guess.
But.
All right. Do you have anything else?
No, that was it. I just wanted to. I guess we could. Just wanted to mention that. I think it's good that students are getting out, and hopefully they'll get out about other things too, and not just school shootings, because there's a lot of important issues that are going on in the world, And there's a lot of other countries that have guns that don't have, you know, school shootings. We talked about the mass murders, etc. You know, it's trying to you know, harm people who own guns. Who, I think there's a philosophical justification, and I think there's also just a practical justification. It's like, well, I want it, I should be able to have it. I mean, we could debate that at some point, I guess, but because a lot of people will say, well, you know, should you have a tank or should you have a nuclear bomb? And I would just say, well, it's so impractical to like. So the nuclear bomb case always makes me mad because it's like you couldn't if you wanted one, you couldn't even get it. Because so what happens is, like, let's say the government was like, yeah, you can have anything you want, we don't care. So he's like, I want a nuclear bomb. Well, how do you get one? Where do you store it? What do you do with it? And people are like, well, what if it blows up and it kills all these people? And it's like, well, then you'd be responsible for that. And, you know, like that's why people have insurance. And that's, I mean, that's, you know, like, it's just always a really poor argument. It's like, oh, well, we'll just let people have nuclear bombs and tanks. It's like, well, you can actually go buy a tank.
Yeah, I was gonna say Arnold Schwarzenegger literally has a tank that he rides around on his private property. Like, you can pay to like go hang out with Arnold Schwarzenegger on his tank. Yeah.
So, but so I guess just wanted to bring that up because it was you know, it's kind of interesting to talk about, and it's not too often that we have like a national news story that's also a feature that's also Columbus. So.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting.
Yeah.
But, yeah, a lot of those kids are there for the same reason I would be, which is to get out of school.
I mean, I'm saying do it, so
yeah, I did the same thing when they had those big, like, 9/11 remembrance events. I'm like, because they would keep teaching class if you, like, didn't go. So, of course I'm going to go.
Yeah. When 9/11 happened, like, I was just sitting in biology class, and then all of a sudden, like, other kids were leaving, and I was like, why are they leaving? And then, like, moms are coming in and grabbing their kids and like crying and stuff. And I was just sitting there, and then it's like the end of the day. And they're like, oh, we're like letting everybody out early. Like, okay. And I just like went home and I was like, oh yeah, they like flew planes into the trade towers. I was like, what? Like, I didn't even hear about it. I was just having a normal day.
Oh, I think it was at my grandmother's, and it was like on the news, and like my grandmother was astonished. And I didn't know why.
As she should be.
Well, I mean, I just like didn't get it. I was like, it's like a terrorist attack. This has happened a lot. Why is this such a big deal?
Yeah.
I mean, in reality, like 9/11.
I mean, it was a big deal, though.
I mean, it was a big deal, but it was only a big deal because it was just like a really big terrorist attack.
Yeah.
I mean, terrorist attacks do happen.
Right.
Somewhat frequently. Worldwide. All right, but I think we've drifted off. Do you have anything else, Eric?
Nope. Forgive us for the short episode because we're both sick this week. If you can't tell from like the coughing background noise that happens sometimes.
All right. Thanks for joining us. This has been Columbus This Week.